Section 25, Scheduling. I go through each subsection and give you the details in the certain areas. 25A, General. We reestablished 6-week bid periods as an option. 6-week bid periods enhance fatigue mitigation because they allow more week-on, week-off lines to be built. All trips known and confirmed shall be published in the bid period package. 80% of the R-Day blocks, including all R24 blocks, shall be published in the bid period package also. We achieved more reserve transparency by allowing any pilot the ability to see all reserve leveling lists and to see the current staffing levels in the reserve forecast modeling system. You will be able to see the number of trips in open time and the reserve coverage for that day. We eliminated the old green screen bulletin board for trades and established a trip proper system, which I will talk about later. 25B, Bid Period Package. It will contain a list of captains and first officers who have not yet consolidated in their current crew status. It will identify the top 50% of trips in that bid period package in terms of scheduled block hours. This relates to the process for consolidating pilots. It will also contain ITU training slots, which will be available for pilots to bid on based on seniority. If additional pilots activate after the monthly bid opens, more secondary lines will be awarded instead of awarding duplicate reserve lines. 25C, Monthly Bidding Procedures. If a pilot is awarded a regular line that results in an FAR conflict and there are multiple trips in the following month, the trip with the lowest credit hours shall be dropped. This is helpful to 777 pilots who have high block trips near the end of a bid period and then are awarded a line with a high block trip in the beginning of the following bid period. On occasion, it creates a 130 block hour violation. Previously, the trip in which the FAR violation occurred would be dropped. If you have recurrent training and it conflicts with any portion of a block of R days, it will cause the entire block to drop and the pilot shall be eligible for CIA. Due to the low block times of certain aircraft type, getting your consolidation hours has been difficult for some pilots. Throw in a vacation period and it gets even harder. For this reason, there is a new provision related to your monthly bidding if you get behind on your consolidation. Once you have activated, you will get a custom line just like today. After your custom line, you will bid like normal. If after your first full bid period, you are behind in your consolidation hours, you may only be awarded lines which have at least 30 block hours, or if you are in a base that doesn't have much block time, the line has to be in the top 50% of lines with the highest block time. You could be awarded a secondary line with a preference for max block or a reserve line. 25D and 25E, bid line categories and construction and bid period processing. One of our big goals was to improve the secondary line experience. Here are some of the highlights. Lines will be published just like today to cover trips, R-Day blocks, and reserve sim support if requested. You will have the ability to preference a combination of trips, R-Day blocks, or reserve sim support. Today, if there are enough trips to build a pilot a legal line, he will be awarded those trips even if they don't match the pilot's preferences. This created a problem by giving your trips on days off that you had requested. With the addition of R-Day blocks and reserve sim supports, it gets the pilot the added flexibility to select these and have a higher chance of getting the days off he wanted. The reserve blocks will be a mixture of RA, RA+, RB, and RB+. One of the big achievements is now there are 2 windows, one for the processing of carry-in awards, CIA, and one for secondary line awards. Open time will now be refreshed after the ViewAdd/CIA window and prior to secondary lines. This way, a secondary line holder gets to see exactly what trips are available to him to bid on. No more is a secondary line pilot putting in preferences for trips that were awarded during the ViewAdd window to CIA pilots. If a pilot has carry-in or recurrent training, he will be able to select how many credit hours are applied towards his secondary line BLG. We enhanced a pilot's ability to adjust his vacation if awarded a secondary line. You will have the option to exercise your vacation slide provisions again. If you have vacation, you will have the ability to preference whether to take more or less vacation and either expand or shrink your vacation footprint. Even if you do not have an awarded vacation slot during that bid period, you may request to take vacation hours in that bid period based on crew staffing, your vacation request may be approved. We are establishing a secondary line working group who will select new secondary line software that has more pilot control and is more user-friendly. One major goal of the new software is to shrink today's footprint for building secondary lines. This in turn will allow the publishing of the secondary lines earlier than today. In the short term, the Scheduling Improvement Group is going to find a new pilot interface for the current software that's being used. It will give pilots more of a direct input to the process. After the secondary lines are published, there will be a reasons report explaining why the individual pilot did not receive the award they were looking for. 25F, bid period phase-in. If you have a carry-in trip that hub turns to another trip in the new bid period, the on-duty limitations shall be based on scheduled duty limits, not operational like today. A carry-in block of R days takes precedence over trips and R days in the new bid period, and trips in the subsequent month will drop, and the pilot will be eligible to participate in the CIA window. If awarded a reserve line in a month in which you have an awarded vacation period, the R days in conflict with the vacation period will be dropped just like today. The entire R day block that was dropped will go into open time for CIA and secondary line bidders. 25G, open time assignments. The company may assign airport standbys to reserve pilots prior to general makeup request during the assignment window. Based on a grievance settlement agreement, we realign the times at which pilots in sick status have trips removed from their line and the time at which the assignment window opens. 25H, substitution. A pilot shall not be considered available if during the entire portion of his initial availability period, IAP, the pilot is in a legal rest period, on a trip, or in training. 25K, advanced reserve assignment. Assignments may be made for trips greater than 60 hours time away from base, been increased from the 50 hours TAFB it is today. Reserve sim support assignments will be on a voluntary basis only. Reserve sim assignment shall be placed on a pilot's calendar and they will receive a crew notification. A pilot will then be able to accept the reserve sim assignment or decline it, and if declined, it will pass down to the next available reserve pilot. If not acknowledged or declined within 12 hours, the assignment will pass down to the next reserve pilot. 25L, bid line adjustments. Today, if you want to drop an R day, it has to be done 2 days prior. We've shortened that window, and now submissions for R day drops may be put up all the way to 0900 the day prior to the R day. Bid line adjustments shall no longer be denied for non-currency as long as the show time is at least 72 hours after the projected non-currency. We now have the ability to PDO bump trips in any base. Also, we have the ability now for any pilot to see how many bid line adjustment requests are in queue for a specific trip that you're trying to get, thus hopefully reducing the need to put in multiple requests when open time is released. We created a contingency bid line adjustment provision in which a pilot can say, I only want to get rid of trip A if I can have trip B and C. We also have a new provision for similar footprint trades. We heard the frustration that pilots have when trying to drop a trip into open time and pick up a trip or series of trips over the same footprint only to be denied for insufficient reserves. We've added a provision that allows a pilot to submit for a bid line adjustment for a trip over the same footprint that has a greater TAFB. We established a trip proper system. This is another frustration we heard, and it's when you're trying to drop a trip but you keep getting denied for insufficient reserves. Now a pilot will have the ability to place trips in open time that he is unable to drop per the normal drop process for pilots to pick up using makeup hours or as a straight pilot pickup. Think of it as a place to advertise that you're trying to drop a trip. 25M, reserve. The top 90% of published reserve lines shall have blocks with a minimum of 4 R days. Sim support may be offered to reserve pilots on a voluntary pass-down basis. If you don't want to accept the assignment, it becomes a voluntary option to the next available reserve pilot. If no reserve pilot accepts the assignment, it goes to a training instructor. One area of confusion we have seen for reserve pilots is when does my 16-hour duty day clock start? We have now established that your duty time begins at the notification window. This is the period of time that starts when you are required to answer your phone for reserve assignments. Duty is limited to 16 hours from the beginning of your notification window unless the flight is augmented, the duty period consists solely of a deadhead, or the pilot is notified before his notification window and does not sit any portion of his notification window. In this case, he must still have at least 8 hours from notification to show time of that duty period. Pilots on R1.5 sitting RB or RB plus shall not have their call out reduced with late call parking. A pilot on RA plus, unless under an operational emergency, also is entitled to this benefit. If given an R24 hotel standby assignment, it shall be a minimum of 2 days and a maximum of 4 days. A pilot's originally scheduled hotel standby may not be revised to include additional hotel standby periods. If launched from hotel standby and that assignment extends past his originally scheduled standby days, then upon completion, the pilot is released back to his R24 schedule. Currently, you have to place yourself on first flight 2 days prior to the local base day. We have enhanced the pilot's flexibility by allowing the selection to be made up to 0900 on the day prior to the reserve period. There will be a separate first fly election for voluntary sim support. We increased the TAFB limit in which a reserve pilot can be assigned outside of direct leveling order to 60 hours. Trips with a TAFB of less than 60 hours shall be assigned in direct leveling order just like today. When assigning trips with a TAFB of greater than 60 hours, they shall be assigned using silos based upon a pilot's remaining available R days. Pilots will be placed in these silos based on their leveling hours for the bid period. If crew scheduling is trying to assign a trip, they must first go to the silo, which matches the length of that trip. If there are no pilots in the silo for that trip, the company has to look in the next higher silo. If there are no pilots in that silo, only then can the company move a soft R day. If the company does move a soft R day, then the pilot shall receive a disruption pay of 3 credit hours. As I mentioned in the Section 4 video, if the RP that you bid on and were awarded is swapped, you shall receive a 1.5 credit hour penalty payment. A reserve pilot may be offered an assignment that extends beyond his R days. He may voluntarily accept that assignment and shall be compensated at 150% above his RLG. 25S disruption pay. We added per diem only, PDO, priority non-premium, PMP, and association flyback, AFB codes as eligible for disruption pay. The number of sweep flights exempt from the disruption pay has been reduced from 25% to 10%. 25U, bumping for training. The minimum notification for training bumps has been increased from 12 to 15 hours. If the bumped trip is in the middle of a series of trips, then a hotel room in base becomes an allowable deviation expense. 25V, extra duty period pay. Again, we've added PDO, PNP, and AFB codes as eligible for extra duty period pay. 25X, service in the uniformed service. We said let the law be the law. 25Y, jury duty. We've incorporated the settlement agreement. Special bid award, SBA. The company may post for a special bid award for fatigue risk management system study pairings or special military charter operations, unless otherwise agreed to by the Vice President of Flight Operations and the MEC Chairman. 25BB, Scheduling Improvement Group. The company shall allow access to fatigue modeling software for the purposes of evaluating domestic pairings. All revisions of specific trips are now viewable by the Association's SIG members. We also established a dispute track that will evaluate disputes based solely on fatigue concerns using the fatigue risk management process. These are the highlights of Section 25.